organizations, individuals, and even religion survives and thrives because of business. Business has to encompass not just financial commodity and service transactions. It has also to include welfare, justice, empowerment, environmental, and other issues too. Every week, Business Matters will delve into aspects of business that impact our lives. We will seek out extraordinary and ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Facilitators, educators, and entrepreneurs will be invited to inspire and enlighten our listeners. Join Anwar Moolla for an interactive show and find out what really matters in business.
نحمد ونصلي على رسول الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You on the Business Matters program, Radio Ansaar, just gone 15 minutes past 7 on a Monday evening. You with me, Anwar Moolla, the Business Matters program brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce. Speaking about the Minara Chamber of Commerce, a friendly reminder that the closing date for the nominations for the Minara Annual Awards is the 2nd of August. If you haven't nominated anybody, please do so. Get your nominations in before the 2nd of August, and inshallah, looking forward to an interesting set of nominations against this year, and also looking forward to the Annual Awards evening, which will take place sometime in October. Also, just some housekeeping. There's a workshop that's taking place. It's the annual NPO and PBO workshop. The topic is transforming NPO financial management with technology. The presenters are Ridwan Khan, he's a chartered accountant, Riza Amra, also a chartered accountant, and Farida Lavangi. And this takes place on the 25th of July, that's on Saturday, and it's at the Amal boardroom that's in Sherwood. So there's also virtual attendance. Seats are limited. Please get hold of Amina at the Amal office, and inshallah get yourself to this, what should be a very interesting annual NPO and PBO workshop. Some interesting presenters there, and that's on this week's Saturday at 9 o'clock. So it's a 3-hour program from 9 to 12 this Saturday. I have my guest on the line. He's joining us from Johannesburg, Brother Yusuf MOOSA. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Brother Anwar, is YACOOB and from Port Shepstone.
Sorry, YACOOB MOOSA joining us from Port Shepstone. So I got that all wrong. Yes, but thanks for joining us. Pity you couldn't be in the studio with us tonight, but YACOOB joining us from Port Shepstone. We're talking tonight about business in general, but more particularly about disciplines in business. So give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself firstly, and then that will inshallah lead us into the program.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Anwar, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here, and salams to you, and good evening to you and the listeners. My name is YACOOB MOOSA. I qualified as an optometrist, practiced for about 11 years, and then I joined the family business Bargain Wholesalers in Port Shepstone, where I served with the family for about 24 years. In 2020, I suffered ill health, and so I had to leave the business, but alhamdulillah, I'm fine now. And while I was in business, I had a good opportunity of doing an executive MBA through UCT, and subsequently I did a year-long course in organizational transformation, and so currently I occupy myself as a business consultant, and so that's where we find ourselves today.
YACOOB, the Bargain Group really needs no introduction. A household name in business circles in KZN and nationally, I must say, and very successfully at that. It must have been quite a decision to make to kind of what I would call divorce yourself or move away from a very successful business and kind of go out on your own, so to speak. A decision that you made many years ago. Just take us through some of the kind of challenges that you may have been grappling with at the time that would have led for you to kind of take this type of decision.
So I'm assuming you're speaking about my leaving the business.
That's right.
And okay, so Alhamdulillah, it was a very interesting time, and I learned a lot in the business, coming from an optometry practice into a huge business with over 1,000 employees. So the learning curve was great and very interesting. But after serving 24 years, I actually suffered severe ill health, and so I couldn't function any longer. So that actually made the decision for me where I had to leave. But Alhamdulillah, subsequently I regained my health, and so I drew on my years of experience in the business and on my studies in order to try and help other entrepreneurs in businesses in order to kind of grow and move forward. And that's where I am now.
Okay. Our topic for tonight, YACOOB, is good business practice, something that I think you are very passionate about, something that I'm sure you would have instilled in the Bargain Group as well, and the Bargain Group has got a very good reputation for that as well, and I'm sure a lot of that would have been from your time there. And we hear about this term, good practice, good business practice, employer-employee relationships, etc. So just kind of encapsulate for us what we are really talking about when we talk about good business practice.
So, Anwar, thank you for that question. And I think normally when one approaches this topic of good business practice, then on things in terms of processes, in terms of operations and marketing and accounting and good governance, etc. But I wanted to approach it from a bird's eye view, from a different perspective. And I think in order to start, what I'd like to say is that good business practice is mainly in order to develop a healthy organization. And so when we say healthy, what we mean is a business or a organization, and any organization is a business because every organization has people that it serves or its customers. So a healthy organization is one that I understand to be effective and efficient in the short term and the long term. So that's a healthy organization. And so whatever practices you have must actually serve this function. So that's my overall understanding of what good business practice involves.
Obviously, YACOOB, there's laws in place, government laws, in terms of labor practices, in terms of minimum wages, in terms of employer-employee relationship, and one would want to not fall foul of the law and stick within these parameters that have been there from the Department of Labor, etc. But I would think that that's just the very start and the basics of good business practice. It should go a lot more than, or a lot further than that.
Yes, you're quite right, Anwar. So how I would approach this is by saying that your business practices should be such that you actually minimize the amount of energy that you need in order to keep a organization that's integrated internally. So let me explain. So every business has only 100% energy available to itself. And the more energy that you consume in order to maintain a internally integrated environment, if it takes too much energy in order to fight fires internally, to put things right on an ongoing basis, if you don't have things sorted out, then the amount of energy that the organization has in order to serve its customers, its external customers, and keep an eye on the environment, the competitors, the changes that are taking place, which will actually, and the energy that you need in order to adapt to the changes that are taking place. Then the more energy that you consume internally, the less that's available externally. And so business practices actually fall, I would think, into four elements. The first element is the element of getting the job done, meeting the day-to-day activities in order to produce the goods to deliver to your customers in a efficient and effective manner. And that we will call the producer mode. You've got to produce the stuff to actually satisfy the customer. Then you also need the business practices that fulfill the need for good administration. And by administration, we mean all those practices that maintain stability in the organization, that create processes and create a sense of control. So the producer actually focuses on getting the job done, getting the goods to the customer, and going ahead with the business. And the administrator then kind of checks the producer. For example, if the guy is just selling lots of stuff and he's not so sure whether he's making a profit, then the administrator, the accountants will create systems to measure profitability and measure results in order to create control. Then you need the processes that take care of the entrepreneurial aspect of the business. And by this I mean is that element or that activity which looks externally and looks at the changes in the environment and looks at what the business needs to do in order to serve its customers in the long term. So it'll be all those processes that focus on the needs of the customer going forward, to look at the trends and to do things now in order to meet the future needs of the customers. So the entrepreneur role is more a risk-taking role, not uncalculated risk, but one that kind of looks at the environment and comes up with lots of ideas. So what we've done now, we've spoken about the producer who actually gets the job done, the administrator who has processes to make sure that the business is stable. The entrepreneur is actually that part of the business that looks at the future and is more innovative. And the last role or the processes that you require is the role of the integrator. The integrator role is actually one that kind of brings all three elements of the producer, the administrator, and the entrepreneur together into one conversation, and mainly focuses on creating an atmosphere of collaboration in the whole business environment. Because if you can create this collaboration, then it actually decreases the amount of energy you need in order to maintain a good internal environment. And we spoke earlier about how the more you can integrate your internal environments, the more energy you have to actually focus on the outside. So the integrator actually brings all these other three guys together to create a better environment and to create a culture of mutual trust and respect, a mutual trust and respect. And so I would think these are the four broad elements that one needs to look at in terms of processes. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting way of looking at the processes. But in your experience, what's the first good business practice?
So I don't know if there's one specific single good business practice, but I would say that it requires these four elements, and these all have to work together in order to create a healthy environment. And if one actually fulfills the requirements of each of these areas of producer, having the practices that fulfill that role, the administration, that having the practices that fulfill those roles, entrepreneur, the integrator. And so all the other aspects of accounting, finance, marketing, operations all fall within these four elements. But I think I also want to add is that what we also need to focus on is that these four elements apply with different levels of intensity at different stages of a business. And this way I want to introduce another concept of the different stages in a business. And I want to introduce the concept of business life cycles. And so this is a concept that comes from Professor Dr. Ishaq Adizes, who was described in depth after many, many years of study across various organizations, various countries, that businesses or organizations can be compared to human beings. And just as human beings go through different stages of their life, a child is conceived, becomes an infant, becomes a toddler, becomes an adolescent, grows into prime, and then slowly declines into old age. So businesses also, at different stages of their life cycles, will use each of these four elements of producer, administrator, entrepreneur, and integrator to different degrees. For example, if a entrepreneur thinks of an idea and launches a business, the business is in its infancy. At this stage, everything in the business revolves around the entrepreneur, because everything is in a stage of full production. And so there isn't much, in terms of the processes, there isn't going to be much specialization in terms of marketing and finance and things. Everything happens all around, mainly around the founder and the person who established a business, and everything goes through him. And so this is very normal at this stage. So all your processes revolve around the founder. But then as the business grows and the founder becomes more successful, then it becomes a toddler, the business becomes a toddler, everything becomes tasty, and the business now, and he now tries to expand the business. But in expanding the business, what happens is the business grows to an extent that it becomes difficult for one person to actually manage the business. So at this stage, the business, the founder or the founders need to look differently at the processes. And what happens at this stage is that the business has to undergo a new birth, in the sense that the business needs to move away from the control of the founder to systems. This is where you bring in professional managers to actually create systems, so that the focus moves away from one person into various systems, so that the business can carry on even if the founder passes on. And this is where I think many of our businesses face a challenge, in the sense that they experience a concept called the founder's trap, where the founder is very successful, and his success actually traps him or traps them, in the sense that when the business becomes too large, the founder actually has great difficulty in delegating or distributing power to other professional managers. And what happens then is, if the business is stuck in this stage, then the business can die with the founder. So in order to actually escape this trap, the business has to set up processes and systems where professional managers come in. But this does not mean losing control. The founder actually changes his role from being the sole controller to one who creates systems and becomes the architect of a system, and then leaves it to the professional managers to manage the internal state of the organization. It's almost like a ship that's at sea, and you have the captain whose hands are on the steering wheel, and then you have the managers who are in the engine room. The captain has to decide whether the ship is going to Bombay or going to Timbuktu. And once he sets direction, then the managers in the engine room need to make sure that they work efficiently, create enough energy for the ship to go forward. So at some point, in order for a business to grow, and this is where it's very, very difficult to most businesses to actually do that and actually separate themselves from the operational, everyday micromanagement of a business, and then work on where the business is going, deciding on what business are we in. Because every organization, every year needs to redefine or ask themselves the question, what business am I in? Who are my customers? And how do I adapt to a changing environment?
Okay, you've touched on a few very salient, important points there. And the one kind of touches on or borders on succession planning. because as you said, you don't want the business to die with the owner. And one of the shortcomings of successful entrepreneurs is the ability to let go, so to speak. Where at what stage does one start handing over or delegating to the next generation? And many a time, successful entrepreneurs who've worked tremendously hard to bring the business to the point where it is at the moment, they have this difficulty in letting go, with thinking that my business, I built it, nobody's going to be able to run it as efficiently as I did. But perhaps a fallacy, because very often we find youngsters come in with new fresh blood, new ideas, new technology, and often take the business to another level. So talk to us a little bit about this issue of delegating and letting go, and how critical that can be in a business.
So you've touched on a very important point, Anwar. And many businesses actually experience that mainly probably in the third or fourth generation, because by this time the founder is probably more elderly. And what happens is, at this stage, the founder may start losing entrepreneurial energy because of the age, and also because the company is now successful. What happens is, two things happen. One is that the founder may feel that we've done it this way all the time, so why change? And sometimes there's also a level of arrogance, in the sense that we are big, nobody can touch us. And this even happens in corporates. Take the example of Nokia. When they had the BlackBerry. At that time, the BlackBerry was like an international phenomenon. And then from the fringes, we had Steve Jobs coming in with the iPhone, with the touchscreen. And when the Nokia bosses were actually approached about this new phenomenon, they laughed it off and said, nobody's going to want that. Everybody wants a touchscreen. Wants a button to press. And because they didn't read the environment, and they had the sense of arrogance that we are the greatest, then what happens is, when you fail to see what's happening in the environment, then that's when you set up yourself for failure. So the point is that it's true that founders care very much, and out of this caring, it's very hard for them, or it's very scary to let go, because it's almost as if a family is running a race where the founder now wants to pass the baton. The next generation says, pass the baton to me, but he's not so sure whether they're going to hold the baton or actually let the baton fall, And that's where preparing the next generation to take over is critical. And another danger we can face is that when the business grows and the founder wants to actually delegate or distribute authority and power, then sometimes families bring in younger family members who may not really understand the business and are given positions of authority and power. And because they don't really know what's happening, then they sometimes disregard the knowledge and the skill and expertise of other managers. And this is also another danger. And besides the founder's trap, this is called the family trap, where the founder passes on authority to family members who are not yet ready to take over. And I think many businesses have a healthy practice that when a younger person comes in, then he usually goes and studies, or maybe works elsewhere, gets experience. And when he comes to the business, he starts from the bottom and earns the respect of other managers, so that when he comes into a position of power and authority, he has respect. So this question of succession planning is a critical one, and it's one of probably the key factors that will determine whether a business will pass on beyond the founder.
Okay, so you spoke about it, but the issue of bringing in young members of the family, perhaps the son of the founder, and sometimes there's a sense of disillusionment amongst key staff that have been there for a long period of time, because they've served, they've kind of burned the midnight oil in growing this business, and suddenly you got this youngster that comes in or has no experience. Maybe theoretically he has in terms of a degree or whatever, but in terms of running the business itself doesn't have the experience. But because he's the son or the nephew of the owner, he's put into a position of power. And sometimes to yield that power, he cuts the legs of those who've had that power, who've built the business over time, to exert his own authority to the detriment of the business. Now, what kind of role can a person like yourself or consultants like yourself, what kind of role can you all play in terms of getting involved at the highest level of business and consulting with the owners in terms of advising on how best to structure the businesses?
I think consultants basically play a role in terms of being a sounding board, being able to come in and cast a view from the outside. But I think the critical factor here is that the business or the family or the founder needs to be open enough to be able to work with consultants in order to get other views, not necessarily follow the view, but be able to be open to other ways of doing things, and be open to discussion, and being open to understand how other businesses operate. Because I think most of our listeners will probably be people in family businesses, and the concept this institution of family business has been well studied throughout the world. So it's not just unique to us in South Africa or to Muslim businesses or Indian businesses. It's a phenomenon that's common throughout the world and has very similar problems and opportunities, advantages and disadvantages that have been well studied. So if founders are open to hearing about the experiences of other businesses in other communities, other organizations, other countries, then you'll find very similar things that are happening in most family businesses. And so it's mainly being open to it. And what consultants do is basically come in, help assess where the business is at. I think what helps a lot is trying to understand where a business is in the life cycle. And then also highlighting what is normal and abnormal, in the sense that if a business is in its infancy, then it's normal for the founder to be almost at an autocrat, because he needs to look after his baby. But if a business is more mature, like an adolescent, then you can't expect an adolescent to behave like a baby. So that's when the founder needs to say he needs to operate differently and distribute power and create systems. So it's a topic on its own that can be discussed at length. But I think in terms of answering the question about how to actually approach this, is firstly is for the family to be open to intervention. Secondly is for the family to realize that whoever is given leadership and authority has to have the skills and the experience to lead the organization. And maybe what can help is this model of how things can work, in the sense that business problems are usually like an iceberg. And usually in an iceberg, just 1/10 or 10% of the iceberg appears above the water. This 90% is below the surface. And what happens is, very often the bosses or the founders will see a problem and may think that they have or they understand it accurately. And one of the most important things is, when one sees a problem, is to make sure that you have analyzed the problem properly. And so in order to do that, what the best thing to do is then bring in the key players in the organization and discuss the problem. In that case, what happens is that the founders then see what's below the surface. And the other important thing is that is to create a culture of mutual trust and respect, in the sense that there's two concepts, trust and respect. So number one is, when there is a discussion with the key role players, the founders and the key managers, is for the founders to create a culture of respect, in the sense that everyone is respected for their view. Often in organizations, managers are actually scared of actually speaking their mind because they may worry that the founder may feel that this is being disrespectful. And often managers then hold back, thinking that they may get in trouble, it may be career limiting. So it's critical that the founders create this climate where when a decision has to be made, then everybody has a chance to speak their mind and everyone is respected for their view, no matter how wild their view is. And then once the founder gathers all the information, then he or she can make a informed opinion. And once the decision is made, then everybody puts their shoulder to the wheel and there's no more discussion and it's implemented. So the discussion phase is actually very democratic. Everyone has their say. But the implementation stage is almost autocratic in the sense that there's no discussion, everyone implements. So this is where maybe family businesses or founders can actually help move the organization forward in terms of distributing power. Is actually have like a shura council, which is an Islamic concept, where you bring in people around you that have knowledge and experience, and then to include the younger members of the family within this discussion forum so that they learn, the experience grows, they actually learn how to deal with things, and in that way they rise to the surface.
Okay. YACOOB, we're going to go for an ad break, and when we come back, perhaps what we can move on to and discuss is some of the essential management functions in a business and how critical these are, and what are these management functions. So let's just go for an ad break.
Teaching you something new every day. Radio Al-Ansar.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
There are over 200 million orphans globally. We can't help all of them, but what if we each helped just one? The Al Imdad Foundation now gives you an opportunity to help just one orphan from Syria or Palestine. For just 500 Rand per month, you can help safeguard the dignity of an orphan by assisting them with basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and attention. Our orphan sponsorship program allows you to track the progress of your orphan through regular feedback. Make a difference in the life of an orphan today. Visit alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Kelly Ramazani from Korea Campus. Success isn't only measured by what we achieve, it is also about the moments that inspire us to grow. This Women's Month, join me at Hamask Her Story, where you'll enjoy a day full of uplifting conversation, inspiration, delicious food, and meaningful sisterhood. Tickets are just 300 Rand. Book yours today by calling Al Ansar Outreach on 031 208 1601. Invest in yourself. I look forward to seeing you there.
Radio Al-Ansar.
Business Matters.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you've just joined us, you're on Radio Al-Ansar. You with me, Anwar Moolla, and it's the Business Matters program. I've been having a really interesting chat with YACOOB Moosa from Port Shepstone, and he's been enlightening us on key disciplines in business. YACOOB, we spoke a bit about the four key functions: producer function, administrator function, entrepreneurial function, and the integrator function. Let's just talk a little bit about if an organization is not run like a well-oiled machine and one of these functions are weak, what are the ramifications of these kind of parts of the business all not working in tandem with each another?
So and that's a very interesting point. So what happens is, if the producer function is not working, and under the producer function you have the operations, and if your operations is not working well, then you're not going to produce the goods for your customers and you'll have no business. So that's critical. Then in terms of administration, you need your accounting, your finance, If you don't have that, then you're basically running an organization, doing lots of sales and having no idea whether you're making a profit or not. The entrepreneurship where you're actually innovative, watching the environment, looking at the market, that's your marketing function. And so if you're not looking out there, then you kind of insular. You will be totally unaware of the changes in the environment, whether it's economic, political, legal. And so you'll soon become obsolete. And the integrator function, and this is where if there isn't a environment of mutual trust and respect, then there's a lot of infighting, backstabbing, and so lots of energy is consumed internally, and so very little is left for looking at the external market. And so even though you may be a huge organization, you're spending so much time internally that what happens, you're not focusing on your customer, and environment changes, and then smaller guys see the gaps and they start stealing your customer base, and in time, the organization will fade away. So that's the kind of summary of the kind of situation that arise. There's also the converse is, if an organization is too focused on operations only, then what happens is or let's put it this way, the energy of an organization or the innovativeness comes from the entrepreneurship function. And this is something that every business owner starts with at the beginning. They're very responsive to the market, very responsive to the customer, adaptable, innovative, and they change very easily. And so if the entrepreneurship or the entrepreneurial energy fades, then what happens is the producer function fades, because you're not aiming in the right direction, you're not producing the right goods, etc. Another aspect is that very often in organizations that are mature, that are led by entrepreneurial people, if the founder who's an entrepreneur retires or passes on without actually training the next generation, or training or actually gearing the company for longevity, for surviving and thriving, then what happens is very often the next level under the entrepreneur is the administrator. And what happens is when the founder goes and the entrepreneur leaves, then usually a person from the administration or maybe a senior accountant will be put into a position of power. Now, this is a bit of can be a dangerous situation, not necessarily so, because you can get a administrator who's entrepreneurial, but the administrators by nature are very risk averse. And so if you ask an entrepreneur that we want to make more profits, he'll say, let's make more sales. But if you speak to an administrator or a person in the finance field and say, we need to make more profit, then they'll say, let's cut costs. So there's also a huge danger that companies face in terms of the processes.
YACOOB, we kind of running out of time, and we haven't even literally gone past the infancy stage of the business. Forget about the toddler and then starting to kind of run. So we definitely need to get you in or speak to you more often and get further insight into longevity of the business and everything that goes with that. But if you can, conclude by looking at a very dynamic situation like we have in South Africa at the moment, where a lot of businesses were employing foreigners. Foreigners have unfortunately had to leave, and they're grappling with loss and lack of production because of the fact that key staff members have now gone away. Some advices from you on where these businesses can kind of pick up the pieces and get their houses, so to speak, back in order, because it's becoming a major problem. Productivity is at a low at the moment.
Go on, Anwar. I think that's a difficult question to answer, and I think you probably have the answer as much as I do. But I think at a time like this, I think the business community needs to rally around each other, maybe involve themselves in think tanks, assess the strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats that we face right now, because it's actually easy to plan for the long term if things happen slowly. But if things suddenly happen like they did now, then it's actually a crisis. And I would think it's not easy for each person to actually try and deal with the crisis on their own. Ideally, we need a sense of community, mashwara, come together, and businesses from all levels come together to try and find out where we are and actually how to deal with things. So I don't have an exact answer, but I think the answer lies in working together, coming together, and thinking through this as a community.
Okay. YACOOB, we're definitely going to get you back on air to talk through so many of the business processes that you're familiar with, that you can, lovely ideas that you can share with us, but time doesn't allow it tonight. If businesses are looking for people like yourselves or yourself to come in as a consultant, how do they get hold of you and kind of open up some sort of relationship where you can come in, see a business, an overall picture, and give your expert advice on how to take things forward?
So I can leave my contact details with you. There are other consultants in the Durban area. I think of Ahmad Sidat from Vector. There are other people that I probably don't know also. And so I think there is a community of consultants out there that can be reached. And I can always share my number and the number of other consultants with you.
Please send, share your details with us.
I will, inshallah. So, do you need my number?
G.
Okay, so I can be reached on 082 5786 906. 082 5786 906.
And do you have a website or anything that people can go on to?
So right now that's basically work in progress because my consultancy is fairly new. But I can also be reached on email. That's my name, YACOOB MOOSA, YACOOB @gmail.com.
Okay.
And then I'll also pass on the name of other consultants that I think can be of value to the community, inshallah.
Sure. YACOOB, some parting words of advice from you to aspiring business people.
So I think the most important thing is to have this hunger to grow, to develop something. And I think what I would like to leave the audience with is the concept of why are we in business? And if you ask somebody, why are you in business? They'll say, to make a profit. And I think what we need to realize that profit is actually secondary. What a business should focus on is satisfying the needs of the customer. If you do that, then profitability follows naturally. So profit is actually is the result of you serving your customers well. And if you serve your customers well and you serve them in terms of what their needs are, and you do it well, and also if you forecast, if you actually think about what their future needs will be, you can prepare now for it. So you'll always be in a situation where you're satisfying your customers, and then profit naturally follows.
Sagely words of advice from YACOOB MOOSA. Serve your customers well, and the profits will follow. So thank you for that, YACOOB. Jazakallah for spending the better part of an hour with us, talking us through some of the important business practices. And inshallah, I think at the end of the day, we all agree if our intention is good, the success will follow.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you, and thank you for this time.
Well, YACOOB, I'm going to get you into the studio at some stage, and we're going to follow through on this discussion. As I said, we didn't get past the infancy stage, so we got a lot more to discuss, inshallah. But we wish you everything of the very best and all the success in your consultancy. And inshallah, we hope that you can and will be of assistance to people, to the listeners of Al Ansar, those that are running their businesses and need some advice on how to take it to the next level. Jazakumullah khair. With that, it's the end of the program. Inshallah, we'll join you again next week on another Business Matters program. Our special thanks to Brother YACOOB MOOSA from Port Shepstone, and thanks to the technician in the studio who's with us tonight, and Jazakumullah khair to you for listening to us. And we'll be back inshallah next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Business Matters. The title suggests many things. The important issue is the world revolves around business, society, organizations, individuals.